It's orange! 145! Oh my god! Decollage! Look at this! Put that in the big bag,
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.
Good evening from Starbase, Texas here. You are taking a look right now at Booster 9. You can see it has already been moved off of the orbital launch mount onto its transporter, the SPMT, as it rolls back, maybe for the last time before launch. We'll have to see. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be helping to host our rollback stream tonight, and seeing hopefully some 5x5s here in chat. I got plenty of those coming in, and hopefully the guests who will be with us tonight are also 5x5, including Mr. Adrian Bile. Adrian, how's it going?
It's going absolutely fantastic. It's an interesting situation we are here in right now in Boca Chica, and we have lots to talk about what might be next for this booster. So I'm looking forward to the conversation to have with you all.
It's going to be a fun one, and we also have Trevor Sesnick joining us. How's it going, Trevor?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to see more stuff happen at Starbase.
It's always exciting, especially as we get closer and closer, hopefully, to the second integrated flight test. And the man who will be pushing the buttons, pulling all the levers, and hopefully pronouncing his name right, Patrick Cahoon. Hopefully I finally got that right. It takes long enough, right? And hopefully soon we may get some views or comments from Jack, so keep your ears and eyes out. And a reminder to all of our members, the members multi-view is once again live. So you get 9 views all at once of everything happening tonight. So if you're a member, make sure to check that out as well. Let's start things off here, Adrian, with just kind of a quick update of where we're at right now.
Yeah, so Booster 9 could successfully at least static fired some engines. In the attempt to fire 33 engines, SpaceX fired a number, according to them, it was apparently 29 engines. And after this, they started to remove the booster now, and it was removed from the orbital launch mount earlier today. And now it's on the transporter stand already, yeah, it started to roll. And as soon as we went live, it stopped to roll. So, thanks SpaceX for waiting for that and apparently helping us with that once again. But yeah, we expect to move back of Booster 9 back to the production side here for, well, work on the Raptors maybe, the installation of the outstaging ring. There might be other things they want to work on. Like, it seems there's some work to do on Booster 9.
Yeah, it makes sense that the company that's owned by the king of trolling would also troll us here with this booster roll. So, this also comes right after the static fire that we had recently. So, Trevor, do you think this may also be a chance for them to work on the Raptor engines?
Yeah, so we were talking about this a little bit earlier today during the Raptor side that I imagine some of you heard, so if you heard me earlier, I apologize for going on a repeat here. But I am not convinced that yesterday's static fire test had problems with the Raptor engines. Because if you just do the little bit of math, according to the stream, they had at least 4 engines that didn't fire. And so 4 over 33 is like 12% or so. And on ship, you're right, there are 6 engines, so a single engine on ship is like 16% or so. So based on the failure rate of Raptors, or ignition failure rate of Raptors yesterday, you would expect on average around 1 Raptor to not ignite per ship static fire attempt, which is not what we see. What we see is, SpaceX is able to flawlessly conduct these ship static fires. So in my opinion, it's more likely that there's something on the vehicle that causes these engines to become slightly less reliable that they'll have to go take a look at, which is probably a good thing if, it's some vehicle change as opposed to engine change. So I suspect, to answer your question, that they're rolling back more for hot stage preparation and, I don't know, some modifications for vehicle.
So let's see. We are having some slight issues with the panel, so I am manually going through chat right now to answer your questions. Hopefully they'll all aggregate in a bit so you can tag at NASASpaceflight with your questions. There was one that I saw here that was from... sorry about that. There we go. Captain Desync asking, do you think that water from the deluge could have splashed into the engines and caused the early shutdowns? Adrian, I know we've looked at the tests before. Did it seem like maybe that's a possibility?
Yeah, I would say probably no. The deluge system is angled in a way that it doesn't really go up to the engines. There's like no way. It goes kind of like out and not really in the direction of the engine bells. So I do not think that's the case. And as soon, of course, as these Raptor engines fire, there's basically kind of no way to get any water into that because, well, the thrust is pushing against it. So I do not think the water is related to that because I would think that SpaceX would have thought about the potential of some water getting into these engines and damaging, and I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, and again, the fact that when we saw the big deluge test, full pressure, all of that before this, we noticed that everything went very much horizontal or outward. It seemed like very little, if anything, actually went straight up, which is good because that's the whole point of that design. Let's see, we have a question here from Adam asking, do we know how many times they can use the deluge system before having to refill it with water? Saying it seems inconvenient to have to refill it after each time. Trevor, I think it uses quite a lot of water, though.
Yeah, I believe they only have water storage for one full launch test of it.
But from my understanding, they have a hydrant down the way that they can use to replenish eventually.
Yeah, so they can truck in water, and that's fairly easy to refill. As we've seen, they've conducted tests of the deluge system, a week apart, or I think even less. So I suspect that's not that big of an issue.
Yeah, I think also to add here, it seems like in these tests, it's almost like the pressure runs out of that system. Like it seems like there's a lot of force initially, and it's almost like they let it go empty sometimes when these tests run out. I don't know if that's like the pressure running out, or if it's like the complete system being empty. But it looks to me like they don't really plan to do attempt to use the deluge 2 times in a row with the same loading because they really let it run for a long time after the initial firing.
Now here's something that's interesting. It looks like they've got the chopsticks there kind of out of the way. So what's the deal with the chopsticks now while they're rolling it out? They maybe just keep it in the same position so as soon as it comes right back for Booster 9, they can load it up?
I think they will go down to the chop stops. And yes, that's a technical term. I think as soon as the booster is done and they have a bit of space on the launch area, they will move the chopsticks down and place them on the chop stops.
Yeah, because it appears as if it's currently moving, or at least one of the arms. It can be seen very clearly on the members multi-view, but in 4K. But yeah, it's something to watch. It may not just be the booster moving, but also the chopstick arms. Here's a question from Wesley asking, do you guys think that the engine shut down because of some sort of faulty sensor or something to do with the engines themselves? Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably some sensor issue or plumbing issue on the vehicle and not the engine side, just because it seemed like they shared a failure mode, but it's also kind of hard to tell with the water deluge, like which engines ignited and which ones didn't. So that would be my guess.
What are your thoughts, Adrian?
It's a good question. I mean, it from what we see from other rockets, a lot of times faulty sensors cause these because you want to be overcautious, right? As soon as a sensor reports something off nominal, you shut it down rather than just thinking that the sensor is wrong. So I don't think it's unlikely that a faulty sensor was the reason for that. Although it could also be something malfunctioning in like an area of the booster. So 4 Raptors were just not good.
Yeah, my thought is, again, we've seen, the Raptor engines are pretty darn reliable, but, you're firing them up, you've got the new deluge system, you've got all these different factors, and again, it's the first time you're firing up Booster 9. So I think this was kind of expected in a way, that there was going to be at least a couple Raptors that either didn't perform exactly as planned or had to be shut down prematurely. It'll be interesting to see whether they replace them or if it's something that they can just easily fix while it's out at Massey's or once it's back on the OLM. Let's see. Here is a question from Cryptic asking, in your opinion, did the new upgrades to the launch area make a difference pertaining to the new metal plate? Adrian, I know after the test, you guys were still talking about that on stream of how the OLM looked. Do you think it made a big difference?
Well, yeah. We looked at the cloud as well, developing from B9 versus B7. And I think, based on what we could see, yes, it looked to have some difference on the effect on the orbital launch area.
Let's see. Here's another one from David Kenny, who asks, do they use gray water for the deluge system, or is it fresh, clean, potable water? Adrian or Trevor, who wants to take that?
To be honest, I have no idea what gray water is.
Gray water is water that is kind of considered, I don't want to say contaminated, but yeah, it isn't the freshest.
Sorry, I've never heard that term before. I believe it's just like filtered water from that they just truck in, but I don't know for sure. Adrian, are you?
Well, it comes from a hydrant from a water area in Brownsville. So I'm not sure if is there like a rule on fire hydrants having to provide clean water?
No, they're generally not potable.
Yeah, then I guess it would be gray water.
Yeah, I'm not sure if those are the same thing, but
Don't tell that to my parents. Used to pop hydrants back in the day.
Huh.
Yeah, it's not just a thing in commercials or in shows or whatever. It legitimately is a thing of popping the hydrant, aka opening it up and just playing it and drinking it. Maybe that explains a lot.
I mean, to be fair, there's a lot of things you do when. If I think what I did as a child, I'm like, I would probably hurt myself if I do these things as an adult. I mean, it happens.
Also,
Like
DOS just corrected me in the back channel that the city of Brownsville actually, it seems, requires all fire hydrants to have potable water from the Brownsville Public Utility Board. So,
All right, next time you want a cup of tea at Starbase, you know where to get it.
yeah.
Disclaimer: there's no warm water in these hydrants. Usually, if there's warm water, I mean, it's Brownsville. It could be that just like heating. I don't know. It's hot there.
It's America. We all drink iced tea.
True.
I do want to thank a few bits of support that we've been getting so far throughout the stream. John Garner, thank you for your Red Team membership. Can't believe I watched the whole stream for Static Fire. The chat was cool. Yeah, that was fun to be a part of, and I'm sure it was very fun for the people who were on the air, like Adrian.
Apparently the lighting for the transport has been turned off.
Yeah, it's also good to point out that when they transport this, they will literally bring a portable light with them. And we're not talking like a flashlight or torch. We're talking a full-on big light system that lights up the whole booster as it goes.
Yep, and that has turned off. Which is, not great.
Were you planning on going back to sleep or something after this?
Well, yes,
Not anymore.
but, well, I'm looking forward to a 9-hour rollout stream.
There we go.
Sawyer and I were already on the 9-hour lift stream, so now back to the production site hype.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
We have a super chat here from Travis Cecil saying, sadly can't stay because of work. I like this. So I'm going to pull a Booster 9 and roll out. Have a great stream. That was good.
That was a very good one.
And then Smart Dev's Neo Cortex, PadRat member saying, will the deluge system work for several launches per week, do you think? I don't know. If it has to be refilled at this rate, Trevor, what do you think? Do you think they can do it multiple launches a week?
I mean, in theory, you can always have, for those operations, you would want to have a direct line and not have to tug or truck in the water. So I don't think refilling it would be the biggest problem. I think what will be interesting is how much erosion happens on the steel plate from a launch, and we don't have data for that yet. But I personally think SpaceX is a long ways out from being able to have the pad for Starship turned around in a week or less.
Yeah, and the other thing is it may not even just be the erosion from the uses of the water itself, but just being out there. Because remember, this is right along the Gulf of Mexico, which is salt water, and that loves to eat away at metal, as we've already seen with some of the surrounding walls and fences and materials that are already out there at Starbase that have been there for a couple of years and look like they've been out there for a couple of decades.
And just to point out on like other limiting factors, even if the deluge could support multiple launches a week, there's other parts of the system that definitely cannot support multiple launches a week. So we will probably, unless we see major modification to any license and, for example, things like pipelines and everything, we will probably not see multiple launches per week from Boca.
What, you don't think they can bring in all of the fuels and oxidizers and everything with 100, 200 trucks each time every single day?
Yeah, I think that might be limiting a bit. Just a tad. So, also the whole thing about like stacking a booster in the ship again and maybe testing it a bit, like making sure it works. Like there's some limiting factors.
Yeah, just a few. Let's see. A couple more questions here from our lovely viewers. Remember, you can tag us at NASASpaceflight to help us better see your question, especially while we work on our panel here. Let's see. We have a question here from, let's see, Chungo Munko asking, were the number of engines that failed to light, or I guess in this case shut down prematurely, more than the start of the IFT? Adrian?
I think right now I'm thinking about the engine count when we first got the IFT engine overview.
There were 3 down.
Yeah, like so it was more.
Yeah, I think it started at 3.
So yeah, it kind of depends what you mean by start, because it lost some engines not long after getting off the pad. However, it's believed, and I believe Elon said this, that the launch commit criteria on the first flight allowed for at most 3 engines to be down and the rocket to lift off.
Yeah, that's what I seem to remember as well. As long as they had no more than 3 engines out, they were going to get off the pad, and that's exactly what they did. Here's a question from Falcon Heavy. This is mixing up all kinds of launch pads and vehicles here. Falcon Heavy is asking whether Starship will be able to launch from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Wow, that is a mix match there. Now, I know they're working on a crew tower at Slick 40, but any chance you think they might be able to launch Starship from there sometime in the future? Trevor, I'll give that one to you.
I mean, depends when in the future you're talking about, because once Falcon 9 is retired, it seems entirely possible that since SpaceX has that lease in the land, they could convert it over to a Starship pad. But in the near term, definitely not. They'll want it for Falcon 9 launches.
Yeah, here's the other thing as someone who has been inside the gates at Slick 40 a few times. It is not a large launch pad. I mean, you go inside 39A's gates, it's pretty spacious. It's very large. It takes quite a while to drive around. Then you get to Slick 40, where it is pretty tight. It's almost like they've used every single square inch of land for some purpose at this point. The fact they had room for the crew tower, actually impressive. So it's way too small, I think, to be able to support both. So like you said, if Falcon 9 gets retired, maybe down the line, but to up their cadence, I think they would have better luck doing something like, either modifying a different pad, maybe 37B, or building their own at something like 49, in addition to what they have at 39A. Here is a question from Captain DeSync, saying, SpaceX brought in another fuel pump. Any thoughts on what they'll do with it or what it unlocks in terms of possibilities? Adrian, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems to me that the fueling might have been a bit faster on the static fire attempt than initially, so maybe that's related to that. I know there were some installment of like an additional, I think, LOX pump, so that might be related. I think that's the reason. I mean, more pumps, more fast in this case. Of course, you're also limited in terms of how much you can put into a booster at the same time because of pipe size. So that's also a thing they have to consider. But for now, it seems the limiting factor for now was the pumps, and it seems like they increased that.
More pumps, more better?
Yes, more pumps, more better. In this case, more pumps, more better.
There you go. Let's see, we have some support here from I'd Rather Be Flying an X-Wing, who said, is SpaceX installing a... is SpaceX installing a... I hate this term, booster bidet in Florida, or sticking with the traditional flame trench once testing is passed and we're into normal launches? Trevor, what do you think? Do you think this is something that they will be able to implement at 39A, or are they going full flame trench mode there as well?
I think they'll install a very similar plate at 39A, because you have to remember that the traditional flame trench is not the be-all end-all of dealing with a lot of thrust, because you still, even with the flame trench, you need a way of transitioning the exhaust from being perpendicular to the ground with parallel to the ground. So you still need some sort of flame deflector to help with that. So I guess the main difference is just, do you have that flame deflector be perpendicular to the ground like it is parallel to the ground like it is at Starbase, or do you have it be at like a 45-degree angle in a flame trench? So I suspect this design that SpaceX has settled on will be quite good in the long run, since it will allow them to hopefully launch a lot without having to dig a flame trench. But it's also worth noting that originally the pad in 39A that SpaceX started building for Starship had the start of a flame diverter for a flame trench, and that was removed, and the pad that they're building now is quite similar to the one that we see in Boca.
Yeah, I do want to add a comment to that just a second, but it does appear that there are flashlights going around the booster, so it's possible that there are workers out there taking a look at something, which hopefully means we will start to see it continue its rollback sooner than later. So all those lights that you kind of see going up, it's not the normal flashing lights on the fixed structure there. That appears to be people with flashlights.
Also, they are looking at the tower and OLM as well, which is interesting. The lights are going basically everywhere, so we'll see what the issue is right now, what they are looking at.
Yeah, obviously we're watching. We also have the members multi-view with different angles of things, so yeah. Going back quickly to that question about the water, though, we've seen some of the piping, I believe, at the pad in some of our older KSC flyovers, that they've been working on some kind of system there besides just a Fire-X to deal with it. The other thing to keep in mind about 39A is that, remember, the Kennedy Space Center is basically built on a wildlife reserve, and it's kind of swamplands almost. So it's very difficult to dig super deep anywhere in that area. Hence why if you look at the other pad at 39A, the main one that's currently used by Falcon, it's raised as opposed to dug in. So it's something that will have to be watched to see what they do, like you said, to act as the actual diversion part. I don't know if they would be able to dig super deep, so if they did anything, it would have to be the plate. Let's see here. We have a question from Aussie Doug asking, once they have a flight-proven system, would they most likely run pipelines from a facility nearby instead of trucks? Adrian, what do you think that would take?
Sorry, I was focused on them going up the stairs here right now.
No, that's also
that?
important. No, I was just asking, do you think, where was it? Once SpaceX have a flight-proven system, do you think they would most likely run pipelines from a facility nearby instead of having to truck everything in?
Yes, a pipeline would be nice for operational purposes and everything, but there is other problems to that, in the fact that well, you need to build a pipeline through a lot of area, and usually that's bring in a lot of permits, a lot of regulations. You suddenly had a lot of work to do, and I'm not sure if that's like easier at that point anymore, because you will have to do a lot of regulations and a lot of permits at that point. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think they need it at this point.
So then here's a question. It looks like they were going inside the cladding there. Was that what I was seeing by the OLM?
Yeah.
Or why? What would they be doing in there, especially ahead of rolling the booster? Do you think maybe they dropped a screw or something, or what?
It's an interesting question, because the booster left that pad like hours ago. So why are they looking at it now?
Yeah, it's been sitting on the SPMT for a little bit here.
Yeah, like, this is not something that should have happened just minutes ago. So yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, I'm really curious what's happening here.
Yeah, this is quite unusual for a booster roll, basically in either direction. You know, maybe more during a lift or just ahead of a lift, but I don't know also why that would delay them rolling it back. That's... obviously, we're going to keep a very close eye on that while we continue to answer some more questions here. And obviously, Adrian or Trevor, if you see anything, interrupt me.
I will.
Do. Yes, I've added a bunch of questions to the panel for you.
Thank you.
Since it's
Yes,
back up.
our
Thank you,
panelists
Jacob, by the way.
Huge thank you to Jacob, and apologies to anyone if we didn't get to put your name or question on screen. but now we will be able to. Here is a question I think that's really good from Daniel, because keep in mind we have hopefully the second integrated flight test coming up very soon. There's another Starlink tonight. There's another Starlink from Florida. I believe that's tomorrow or the day after. No, it's tomorrow. So Daniel asking, do you think SpaceX will hit their target of 100 launches this year? Trevor, what do you think?
Well, let me do some math real quick because it's going to be close.
Yeah, because I can tell you up to this point, there have been 54 launches from SpaceX this year.
Yeah, right, there's 54 launches this year, so they're at 54% of their goal, and we're about 59% of the way through the year, if I remember correctly, or if my math that I just did is correct. And generally, SpaceX's launch cadence is slightly higher in the second half of the year, and we've seen that with SpaceX's pad turnaround times being decreased. Also, you can see people walking down the stairs in this shot. I don't know why they're looking at OLM. Anyway.
Yeah, looking up at it a bit too. Now, yeah, looking at the legs. Huh.
It's an interesting process what is happening here right now.
It's... Yeah. Unconventional.
Why would they look at the OLM? I still cannot get... Sorry, I'm totally stuck on that thought. I'm sorry to interrupt the question here, but...
Me too.
Why would they look at the OLM? The booster was removed from the OLM hours ago. Why is the moment... Like, it seems they stopped the rollout and... Like, stopped everything here to look at the orbital launch mount. That's at least... weird? Interesting?
Yeah.
And not only were they looking in it, now that they've come down from the stairs, they're looking upwards, it appears, at it, at the legs, at the underside.
Yeah. It's a weird moment. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they inspect the orbital launch mount, but right now it seems like they've stopped operations here to look at the orbital launch mount. I'm like, what? Like, did they see something in the booster? Like, really what you said? Like, is there something missing on the booster or something? Like, is there a screw missing? And they're like, maybe you can find it. I don't know. It's certainly interesting. Or maybe they saw like a scratch or a bump somewhere, and now they check on the corresponding part of the OLM if that also is scratched or bumped or anything, to see if that's from there or from the stand. Like, that's the only thing I can think about here.
Yeah, that would be the only thing that makes sense of why they wouldn't wait until they roll the booster all the way back. And it is worth noting that technically the road closure for movement of the booster was from 9 through 12, so 9 p.m. through 12 a.m. Central Time, although we have seen them go past that in the middle of the night like this.
Yeah, like this is a rolling closure. They're not that strict with these rolling closures because the access to everything is not really like completely blocked. It's more a bit of a traffic jam, to say it like that.
Did they just turn the lights back on the trailer, or is it just the angle? But it looks like they're looking at both almost now, looking at the legs and then shining the light back on Booster 9.
Yeah, maybe we are, since they are left the OLM, maybe they're continuing soon.
Yeah, this is, again, quite unique.
Wild.
Yeah.
Okay, going back to the will SpaceX launch 100 times this year, I just wanted to say one more thing. So that's if they keep their current cadence, they'll launch roughly 92 times this year. However, SpaceX generally launches more in the second half of the year, and it's generally about 10% more, if I recall correctly. So if you take that into account, plus 2 more Starship flights this year, SpaceX will be very close to their 100 launch goal. Like probably 98, 99, somewhere in that range.
If it's 98 or 99, you know they're going to try and push for that extra 100th in there if they can.
Yeah. Maybe on Christmas they'll have a launch.
That's normally one of the few days that they actually give SpaceX employees off, mainly because the range is off on those days, more so than the SpaceX employees.
Yeah, they'll make their own range just for the single launch to get their goal.
Yes, I'm sure the
I'm sure the 45th
U.S.
would love
military, yeah, the U.S. military would love that.
It's like, yeah, totally, private company clearing the range for us. Don't worry about that.
that. SpaceX did it on SN8.
True. But they
Let's-
got help from like local authorities, right?
And they launched without permission, but you know.
Whole nother story
mean,
there.
That FAA report on SN8 is still my favorite. There's a line somewhere in there that be like, while we told SpaceX to not launch today, we observed liftoff on the screens.
Yeah, I
Like-
just found the line. While planning a call to SpaceX to inform them of our position, we observed liftoff occur on the video.
Yeah,
Yep, there you go.
It's a highlight line.
FAA watches NASA spaceflight confirmed. It
Well-
looks like we're seeing the more lights on the booster, and almost like they're using that light as well on parts of the OLM.
Yeah, it's a really strange situation here right now. And of course, we thought this would be a quick rollout. We can just whatever. We can do a nice little stream, cover it, and as soon as we hit live, they stop.
Every time we think it's going to be a quick stream, just like the lift.
Yeah. It's I think it's moving again. Yeah, it's moving again.
It is. So for those that are just joining, I know there's been some confusion, especially while they looked at the orbital launch mount. What have we missed so far tonight? Adrian, do you mind giving us a quick recap of what we missed and where we're going?
You mean in the rollout process here?
In the roll, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so earlier, before the night, they removed Booster 9 from the orbital launch mount, put it on the transport stand on the SPMTs, and now a bit earlier ago, they detached the chopsticks, which gave the booster stability until now, and yeah, and they're now moving
It's
it back
moving
to the
again.
production side.
Yeah, confirmed.
Yep. Sorry to interrupt.
All good.
Yeah. So how long does this rollout take? Where is it going in relation to here, distance-wise?
Well, now I need to. I think it's about 2 miles, going down the. But I would need to check on Google Maps. But it's about 1 hour. A rollout from the launch site to production site. Once they hit the road, it's about 1 hour.
Yep. Once you get on the highway, you floor to the whole whopping 2-3 miles an hour. I'm also so used to the crawler transporter down to Kennedy, which is, what is it,
Slower.
half mile an hour?
It's like in contrast to other transporters, SPMTs are quite fast.
Really are. Let's see here. Let's take some more questions now. Here's one from Kitty Yuki asking, would SpaceX try to inspect Booster 9 after it soft lands in the Gulf? Maybe try to inspect how the hot stage ring held up. Trevor, what do you think?
I doubt it. I suspect that there'll have been too much damage, even if there's a soft landing, when the vehicle tips over and then is in the ocean for a while. However, on that note, I know SpaceX has said that in filings that to ensure that, they just don't leave a bunch of debris floating in the ocean, that they'll go out in boats and retrieve as much as they can. And then I believe they also sink any of the large stuff that's left. So they'll get some of it back, but I suspect that a lot of it's not really for inspection purposes, but more to just make sure that they're not damaging the environment.
That is true. Yeah, that's part of it, is making sure they're environmentally friendly as best as they can.
That booster is really moving now.
Yeah, just as we were talking about the speed of it, there you go. So we're kind of talking about the disposal here. So the plan, if it does fly, is it's a one and done. But Yan Yanso asking, do you think they would retire this booster, or will they just check the engines that failed or stopped working in the static fire test? Because Ship 10 is making some or Booster 10, excuse me, is making some progress. Adrian, what do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think they will retire this. In contrast to what Booster 7 endured during his test campaign, this booster only had like one test that was now slightly off. And yeah, I don't think there will be any retirement. Like, that's compared to what the downcomer imploding and an explosive sprint prime, and like, how did Booster 7 fly?
Not well.
Yeah, true. But I think they are committed to this booster.
Yeah, I mean, very early on in the Twitter spaces, back when it was Twitter that Elon did, he basically said that it's going to be Booster 9 and Ship 25 for this flight. I want to thank a few people here for their support. Another support here from Samar Devs Neocortex saying, do limiting factors make it more likely that regular Elon Ambition Weekly launches will be from Florida instead? I think the plan in general, Trevor, is to have Florida as one of the main launch sites, right?
Yeah, Elon has talked about how long-term Starbase will be mainly for development, and Florida will be for, commercial launches and regular missions and whatnot. So I think you're definitely correct that the most likely the first pad to get to weekly launches is probably going to be 39A and other pads at the Cape, and I would be surprised if Starbase ever reaches weekly launches.
No, I think, yeah, it depends also on how much research and how quickly they're iterating those research items, but yeah. Because technically, all of the launches that we're seeing right now are all test flights, so it's sticking true that all the test flights are out of Starbase.
Absolutely.
Nate Saunders, thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. Tracy, we love Tracy here. Thank you for gifting a Red Team membership. And Bideford with the $20 super chat saying, yawning already and staying awake for the Vandenberg launch too, hopefully. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. And yes, there's SpaceX is keeping doubly busy in that they have just, I believe, given the go for fueling for that launch.
Yeah, I believe they're in propellant load.
Yep. So SpaceX never sleeps.
Launches in
neither do we.
34 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that. It is indeed another Starlink launch. It's from the other coast, not the best coast, but, we'll let it slide. I'm just waiting for Jack to start typing angrily in the back channel now. Let's see. Chuggamungo asking, do you think SpaceX will insulate the ship and booster in the future so ice isn't visible on the outside, or would that be a waste of resources? Adrian, what are your thoughts? Do you think we ever see shiny booster all the way?
Well, they don't need to. Like, the ice is, from a weight perspective, less problematic than if you would insulate the whole booster. That would be far more weight. And also the weight from the ice is basically gone as soon as you lift off. Like, most of the ice will just drop down. So you wouldn't really gain something from this. You would just have a lot of weight for insulating, and the ice so far is not giving them any troubles. Like, it doesn't seem like ice is an issue. And friendly reminder here, Falcon 9, for example, also has ice on the outside. And other rockets have too. Like, there are rockets sometimes have ice outside, it's not a problem. Yeah. I don't think they will start to insulate this whole thing.
Yeah, and I would also like to point out, I partly asked that question because that means I can mark
Oh,
off your bingo
no.
cards, the space shuttle. Which,
Really, the space shuttle? I thought you would bring up Buran.
no comment.
I was.
Or should I say no comment?
Oh,
Go
Anyway,
on.
there goes a pun token. Now, for those who remember, the first two flights of the space shuttle, STS-1 and 2, had white external tanks. But then they realized that, that's in the long run is going to add extra mass that could be used instead for payloads and people and science experiments. So after that, they decided not to paint it and leave the tank in the natural color of the insulating foam. And guess what? It's orange.
I still think that STS-1 and STS-2 were the best looking shuttles to ever fly. The white tank with the black strakes of Columbia was, I don't know, looked phenomenal in my opinion.
Yeah, for those who don't know, each shuttle was built differently, so the tiles were slightly different shaped in different places. Some vehicles were lighter than others. But the one thing with Columbia is it had that little silt spot on the back, that big bump on the tail that always made it very distinguished from the others. Here's a question from Daniel Vasquez that I'm going to ask and maybe modify a little bit. Trevor, do you think they will install the hot stage ring on this booster? And if so, where is going to be my question. Do you think they'll do it while it's rolled back or once it's back out at the pad?
Yeah, I mean, for the will they, right, they have to for this launch. They've already adjusted the ship QD to, for the ship sitting a little bit higher. And, I mean, they could fairly easily undo that modification, but it's pretty clear that at this point SpaceX is all gung-ho on attempting hot staging on this next flight. As to where, I would be pretty surprised if it doesn't get installed during this rollback. Since they are already at the launch site, it seems like just too good of an opportunity to quickly stack the ring on top and then roll it back out for more static fire testing. However, it does definitely seem possible that the ring could also be installed on the orbital launch mount. That's what Alex and I actually both were suspecting was going to be the case up until this morning when they changed the chopsticks from ship lift configuration to booster lift and took the booster off of the orbital launch mount.
And I don't know why, it almost feels like Jaws tracking in the water there as it now comes out from behind the tanks there, right next to Hopper. I've been told Hoppy is incorrect, and then I should call it Hopper. So there you go, Jack. Worst coast, but correct pronunciation. As it comes around the road here. Also, fantastic views.
Yeah, I like that shot. It's really cool.
I mean, the real question, Sawyer, is if Jack thought that the East Coast was the worst coast, why would he kind of be on the East Coast right now? Because, it is the eastern side of the U.S.
Well, he's on the east coast of Texas, which is in the central United States.
Yeah, but it's still the east side. So.
I think east side, west side is something totally different as opposed to east coast, west coast.
Yeah, I think that instantly makes then an interesting debate about the west area of Florida. Is that the east or west coast?
Oh,
right,
Alex
the
in the
west
back
is on the
channel
Gulf
says,
Coast.
In the back channel, Alex says it's the Star Coast.
Oh no! Don't let SpaceX name that.
We summoned Jack.
Uh-oh. We talk about coast too long.
And Hopper. I don't know.
Yeah,
which
it's
was the summoning word.
We now see Booster 9 reaching Highway 4, and we'll do a sharp left in a bit, and then basically activate DRS and go on the long straight here for the Formula 1 fans here.
Is this kind of going around areas that might be a little too wide to fit? Yeah, that's coming in big there.
No.
I feel like that was a reference that went over Adrian and I's head.
It wasn't. It was a genuine question.
Oh, sorry, ask the question again.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just trajectory, where it's going, where it's turning, etc. Anyway, we saw them looking earlier. Again, we still don't know exactly why at the orbital launch mount with a whole bunch of flashlights before they did the move here. There's a question from Kobe Brew, hope I'm pronouncing that right, saying, will the tower cladding be done before IFT-2? Adrian, what do they still have left to do in terms of cladding on the OLM?
Yeah, well, basically they started to do a few segments close to the blast area, to call it like that, and then they never continued it. So, good question. Maybe they just wanted to protect this lake very sensitive and very close to the pad area and are fine with the rest being open. We just don't know at this point what's their plan with that. It doesn't seem like they're in a hurry to finish it, at least from what we can see, because there has been no like really work ongoing, and at this point I would doubt that it would be finished for a second flight. But however, it's just some cladding, so I wouldn't say like it's impossible. It doesn't seem like it's in any shape or form any priority for them right now.
It also doesn't seem like it's mission critical that if they get a launch date and everything's squared away, that if the cladding is mostly done, that it would mean that they would have to delay. I think they'd still continue on, probably.
Yeah.
All right, we are watching Booster 9 getting closer and closer to our cameras on its way. I believe it's going over to Massey's. So what do they actually do over at Massey's, for those who don't know?
We don't know if it's going to Massey's or to the production side, actually.
Oh, good point.
It's probably production side.
Oh, we have a robot Jack.
Yeah, it's. I think we heard the letter A there from Jack, which I think he endorsed it as his favorite letter. Which, as a person starting with the letter A, I thank you, Jack.
I think he was trying to mimic the Fonz.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's not. It's probably going to the production side. The question is where there. If it will go one of the base, or if it will go to like some other area, like Rock Garden or something other where they store it. That's more of the question here.
Yeah, because Hello is asking along those lines. Would they put it in the Mega Bay, saying that the rocket garden is kind of full at this point?
Yeah, and also we are getting confirmation that the road is being repaired, so other area to Massey's, so there's no way that they will roll it out all the way to Massey's. Also, the road closure is not long enough for Massey's, all the way from the launch site, so it will be a production site. The question is just where at the production site.
Round and round it goes, where it stops at the production site. I'm sure somebody knows, we just don't yet.
Yep.
Oh, man. So as the booster here goes back to the production site, how about we throw things back a little bit? I don't know about you, but I loved some of the retro games in the 1980s, which I wasn't alive, but I got to play them afterwards. And now you can represent Starbase and your love of classic games all in one. This is the newest part of our Starbase collection called Retro Starbase. We literally sent Jack out to the middle of nowhere to get a pretty darn accurate skyline picture of Starbase itself as we work its way up to suborbital, orbital, and onward. We have it in shirts, sweatshirts, and so much more, and all of that. And what?
And there's a new product that was recently added because people were demanding a bigger mouse pad. So if we go to the Retro Base collection once more, if that's possible, Patrick, then you will see that there is now at the bottom a gaming mouse pad on the left side that is extra large for people that wanted a bigger mouse pad. And I can tell you that was not only a demand from our viewers, but also from team members who wanted a bigger mouse pad. So it's there now.
There you go. And again, since we are live, you see the giant "We Are Live" button. So if you get anything from the shop, you can also send a message that will be read on air.
There we go.
Yeah. Shopped on
Patrick
NASASpaceflight.
misspelled pun.
It still counts. I don't care. I'll take it. Thank you, Patrick.
It's always such a funny thing to see Patrick spell life on air. I think Booster 9 has now reached Highway 4. There's a lot of numbers in here. So yeah, this is not Booster 4. Booster 4 is not getting tested anymore.
Wow, yeah, throwing it way back there with where's ship 20 while we're at it?
Yeah, I'm bringing back SN11 or something. I'm actually don't bring back SN11. That was.
I think this is Mark III rolling down the highway.
Oh yeah, oh god. Yeah,
It could be SN15. Oh, wait.
Aww.
Oh, too soon. Too soon.
Sorry.
We'll never be not too soon.
Yeah, true. I'm sorry, Chad. I'm sorry. I do also want to clarify. There's some people trying to clarify the coasts. James says the west in the U.S. starts west of the Mississippi. You've got Dr. Holly saying in Texas we call it the third coast, Sawyer. And then you've got Bushtail just saying south coast, you dinguses. So thank you all for the lack of clarification there.
Yeah, it seems like I don't think I'm necessarily smarter now, but I certainly have more options to pick from.
There you go, exactly. Oh goodness. All right, let me recompose myself here.
We have a Booster 9 Hopper eclipse.
Oh, gorgeous.
We don't have footage of it, but we are 20 minutes away from the Starlink launch at Vandenberg, which means it's time for the best event. Just thought I would throw that out there real quick.
The minus 20-minute event. Although for Starship, as we saw even just during the static fire, there's a lot of vents. So I guess they're all best event because there's so many of them. Except the depress vent, because we don't like that one, because that means either the testing's done or no more launches. All right, let's see. Question here from Falcon Heavy saying, how do you think they will modify the tower for the Deer moon mission? And for that matter, in general, what would they have to change to get their tower's crew ready? Trevor.
Yeah, this is an interesting question because, right, as we've kind of talked about a little bit on stream today, it's pretty much thought that Deer Moon and most of the, at least early crewed Starship flights will happen from 39A in Florida. So it's likely that they'll probably make it resemble the Falcon 9 tower and go for a similar theme to Falcon 9. And we saw that in some of the filings, not that those documents are super, reliable in the sense that what the renders that they have in those are actually going to be a thing, but they'll probably be pretty similar to what we see on Falcon 9, just way larger. However, I kind of doubt SpaceX has started thinking that much about crew access arms and crew tower for Starship, just because those missions are a little bit away.
Yeah, on top of that, we also still have yet to see a heck of a lot of development in regards to the crew-rated version of the ship itself, which will eventually be used for the Artemis 3 mission, theoretically first, which will bring the first humans back to the surface of the moon since 1972, which I did see a question of it. That was where It's Orange comes from. That was the Apollo 17 mission. You had Gene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt, and that's when he goes, "It's orange," and you hear the reply, actually a couple sentences later in the intro, saying, "Put it in the mixed bag, Gino." And Robot Jack agrees.
Yeah, Robot Jack totally is game with that statement.
We could basically make Jack say that he agrees with anything at this point then, right? So
yeah,
East
Jack
Coast is
agrees.
Best Coast?
I was just about to say that.
West Coast, best.
I think I heard West Coast, Worst Coast.
There's some argument about what was said there, but I think it was Best Coast. Also, we see Booster 9 now, for a booster, being relatively fast and already passing the suborbital test site. So, yeah, we finally have a rollout here.
Yeah, that is picking up quite a bunch of speed, especially when you see it from this side-on angle. It really gives the idea that it's surprisingly fast. I don't think we know the exact speed number. It's more of just, you know, obviously you're not talking F1 speeds here, but still. Here's a good question. While we were talking about the crew-rated part, Z, a bit of a controversial question here. Artemis 2 or Dear Moon, which happens first?
Artemis
We'll go
2.
around the horn.
100% Artemis 2.
Yeah, like there's Artemis. I mean, to be fair, Artemis 2 doesn't require Starship, right? So,
Yep.
No.
I wouldn't be like, there's no way that the moon. I would even argue that the moon will happen after Artemis 3.
I feel like it would have
Oh,
to, because
sure.
yes, I mean, they're getting money from the private side for that mission, but at the same time, they have a government contract for Artemis 3 with NASA and basically the whole NASA, the Artemis Accords, and all of those countries to get the people onto the surface of the moon. They have timelines that they're striving to achieve, especially with NASA trying to target, I believe it's 2026 right now, for the Artemis 3 landing. So I think that takes the higher priority, comes first, and at that point, once you have a proven system, it's easy enough to take a version of that, get rid of the landing portion of it, and get ready to fly it around the moon with private paying customers.
Yeah, we saw during the early Starship program, when SpaceX started to shift a bit more attention to Starship, and while Dragon was not fully operational yet, how in the Bridenstine era, NASA called out SpaceX for that. And I think in a situation where Artemis 3 would be possibly not be on time, and then you see Dear Moon flying, that would create a huge pushback from NASA as their biggest contract. So yeah, I don't think there's any way that, like, before Artemis 3 is fulfilled, Dear Moon will not happen.
Yeah, and I think it's also just important to restate the fact that Starship isn't just SpaceX. It is also partly a NASA program, in the fact that they are getting funding from NASA to help develop the vehicle to be able to launch the Starship Crew variant and eventually the Lander variant to get people back to the moon for the first time, as they have the contract for Artemis 3 and Artemis 4 landings. So it's important to remember that it's not a competition here of, oh, we're going to do Dear Moon first because NASA takes too long. No, this is a partnership.
I think that's a really good point, that, you know, NASA is by far SpaceX's largest customer, and you generally do not want to annoy your largest customer. So I don't think it would be smart for SpaceX to try to go to the moon first before they do with NASA. Not that I think they would be able to anyway.
Also, it doesn't seem to me right now that SpaceX will be just years ahead of NASA for Artemis 3. Like, right now, it doesn't appear to me that SpaceX is just running away with this, and NASA is the one that creates a lot of pacing items. Right now, I think we don't know yet which will be the potential pacing item and the potential dangerous schedule item for Artemis 3, but right now I wouldn't count out Starship as being a potential item to watch for that. So I think before SpaceX starts to think about their own more smaller missions, compared to Artemis 3, which is way bigger than any other mission they can do right now, I think they need to do their homework themselves. They need to develop the HLS lander and make sure it works. And once they have that, then you can start to talk about, oh, they're waiting on NASA. But right now, SpaceX is not waiting on NASA.
And that's not the only thing they have to develop either. They also have to develop the in-orbit refueling procedures too. So that's another variant and another step that needs to be worked out before the landing, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's so much that goes into this, and they still have quite a schedule because they want to do a demo landing. Remember, they want to, before the main thing happens, they want to do a demo flight, and that also has to happen yet.
Yeah, I know it was a bit of a tangent we went off on there, but I just thought that was important to mention while we were talking about, Artemis and the private programs.
Yep.
Let's see. We have some super chats and some store purchases coming in here. Josh saying, I was sad to not see a bigger mousepad option with this design when I looked yesterday. Thanks for adding it. Well, thank you for purchasing it as well, and hopefully you enjoy it. Yeah, there it is, the XL Gaming Mousepad.
You're welcome.
And then Anonymous saying, Texas is the third coast. So whoever mentioned that was correct, with lots of exclamation points, getting the gorgeous Starship Sunrise metal print there. So, yeah, again, I will continue to call it Texas along the Gulf Coast. I won't assign it a specific central, east, west. I'll try and stay neutral on that side at least, because I have some great friends in Texas. Can't say I've met a bad person in Texas, so.
I'm just gonna call it the northern coast to be as wrong as I possibly can be.
Nice. I like that commitment. I really like that commitment.
Let's see. We've got some actual questions as well that came in here. Brian Hamstra with the super chat saying, if IFT2 is successful, or at least doesn't do any or much damage to the pad, how long after is IFT3? It was less than a month from SN11 to SN15, and there are boosters and ships ready to go. I mean, at this point, we're at, what, 4 months?
Yeah, I think it would be about 2 months for a full test campaign and then getting ready. Like, about 2-ish months, I think, would be if the pad is completely fine. Well, I think it will need at least some minor repairs, maybe. But I think like 2 to 3 months is doable if the pad is in a good shape.
It's also worth noting that another possibility is that the pad doesn't have significant damage to it, but that there are retrofits that they want to make to the vehicles, which could also take quite a bit of time. So I think if SpaceX can launch the B10 stack 2 months after the B9 stack, that would be a huge accomplishment and really good for the program.
Yep. And also we have a progress bar now here. You can see now on the left is the 0%, in the middle you have a booster, and the right one is the rollout complete. We have a progress bar.
I love that view. It looks like it's about halfway at this point.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think the road is making a bit of an angle here to the left. So I think this shorter part, and it will be a bit slower down the line.
Well, it also had to maneuver its way out from the orbital launch mount area too, so it kind of evens out.
Yeah, that's true.
Lincoln Thompson asking, do we know what 4 engines quit during the static fire and why? And does SpaceX experiment with 33 different fuel mixture settings to see what works? Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, so as to if we know which engines were out, unfortunately not. I suspect that all of the engines that had problems were close to one another and in the same bank with their new ignition sequence, which seems to be done in these banks of engines now to decrease startup time. However, because of the water deluge and fire systems, it was it was impossible to tell which engines ignited and which ones didn't. And then as to, does SpaceX experiment with 33 different fuel mixture settings to see what works? No. At least definitely not at Starbase. That's the kind of change that they would mess around with in McGregor and in software to figure out, what would the combustion temperature be, how much film cooling would you need, blah, blah, blah. That's not something you want to mess around with on a vehicle in a somewhat operational engine. That's for the test stand.
Right, you run into a lot of potential dangers there if the pressures aren't exactly even or one is too under pressure or over pressure. You could have a bad day on the test, whereas when you expect them all to be the same, you can pressurize them all the same systems to get everything up and running. And in this case, if you see something that maybe is out of line, you can just shut those engines down and the rest will still continue at pressure.
Yeah. It's a lot cheaper to damage a test stand at McGregor than it is to, damage a booster in Starbase.
Exactly, and don't forget, you can watch those tests at McGregor Live 24/7, nsf.live/McGregor. Anyway, shameless prologue done. Continuing along here, Ethan Sir, with a kind of off-topic question, but still, I guess, worth mentioning here. Did we ever find out what the massive vent was during the Ship 24 and Booster 7 wet dress rehearsal? Adrian, you remember there was that big puff of smoke. Do we know what that was?
I don't think we ever got any confirmation on what it was. I don't recall any official confirmation on what that was. So, no. Sadly, not. And again, it is one specific big vent, and SpaceX usually doesn't comment on, what that vent was. That's too specific.
It definitely seemed not nominal because I believe we have not seen that vent again. So it very easily could have been some contingency vent or, whatnot.
Yeah, it hasn't been explained, and they haven't said whether it's nominal. I guess one way we'll find out as well is the wet dress rehearsal for Booster 9 and Ship 25.
Yep.
For those who are asking about it, I've seen some questions about the launch from Vandenberg. We now have that in the top right corner of your screen, where you can see Booster 9 on the left rolling down the road still. And we will be keeping an eye. That is a Starlink launch out of Vandenberg Space Force Base. That one, for those who are wondering, is Starlink 6-20. And that is B-1075 making its 5th flight, with a drone ship landing on, of course, I Still Love You. Back to Starship and some Starship questions here. Here's a question from Redbeard, and it relates to the Dear Moon question. For Dear Moon and other early missions, is it possible they launch the ship uncrewed and then launch the crew on Falcon later? I know this is something we've discussed a couple of times, but is that a potential to just have a docking port on it and say, hey, we'll launch the crew on Falcon and get as many people up as we need that way and then continue onward? Adrian, what do you think?
It's certainly not impossible, although while you decrease some risks, you then increase other risks, as in you have an in-orbit transition maneuver where you have to leave Dragon and then bring people into Starship. It would need some pretty significant risk calculation if you're even helping your cause there, I think.
Yeah.
I definitely...
Go ahead, Trevor.
I've definitely had this thought as well, because the idea of launching and landing a crew on Starship soon just kind of seems a little absurd in my mind. But then I think that, if SpaceX is able to ramp up the launch cadence as quickly as they've been saying and, get 100, 200 flights under their belt, within a few years, then all of a sudden it starts to seem a little bit more plausible. But yeah, it would be interesting to see if SpaceX has considered making sure that there's increased safety during ascent and descent, being in a flight-proven capsule over, Starship, which has yet to fly, and moreover hasn't re-entered yet.
Yeah, that is true. I think also you've yet to see a full test of the tiles on the Starship itself, which hopefully, we can get it into an orbit and be able to test the durability of it re-entering around Hawaii during one of these upcoming integrated flight tests. I would like to point out, if you hear noise, there is another commentator who is joining me in the room, and that is my cat Jake. So if you hear any purring or nudging of the mic, that would be him saying hello to chat.
Hello, Starlink.
There it is, yeah. The Starlink launch coming up in very short amount of time here, and of course, Vandenberg being Vandenberg, where you can't see anything. And people say that's the best coast. I kid. Any coast that has rockets launching from it is a good coast. I'll say that.
I feel offended.
Yours isn't a coast. Yours is a totally different continent and country.
And also we don't have rockets.
That too, yeah. Yet, but...
Yep.
My favorite coast is in Colorado.
I'm not even going to entertain that one with a response.
We have United Launch Alliance's headquarters. That's pretty cool.
I mean,
True.
they test boosters nearby in Promontory in Utah. I'll give Utah a coastline, but that's about it. Anyway, ignoring that, Barry A pointing out that there were some loud pops, it sounded like, during the static fire. Could that have been any Raptor RUDs, thus the rollback? I don't think there was any RUD of any kind that we saw, correct?
No, we didn't. And also the popping sound sometimes can also just be... So, a static fire is loud, so sometimes the microphones are just not handling it well. Then it's like a 100-something decibel thing firing next to them. Also, speaking of 100 decibel things firing to them...
1.
There we go!
0, ignition, and liftoff. That's Falcon 9, Starlink 6-20, bringing more Starlink V2 minis.
You gotta love Vandenberg.
There it is, but that
Hey,
shot is
there
cool
we
when
go.
it pops out of the fog, gotta say.
Yep.
I'll note, by the way, back to the RUD question, that earlier today when Booster 9 was being taken off the launch pad, our very own Jack Beyer got some phenomenal shots of the engine section. I'll spam this in chat, and you can see that thankfully there doesn't seem to be any damage to any of the engines.
There you go. And should point out that you're still hearing the sounds of Starbase. We are going to leave the picture up of Starlink, and of course we'll mention major milestones as it goes along. But for those of you that are here specifically for the Starbase part, we want to make sure you get the full experience as well.
Yep.
Which the Falcon is about to come up on max Q in a couple seconds, maximum dynamic pressure. Meanwhile, Booster 9 continuing to move along with this whole army along with it.
I guess you could also say, since like right now in a highest moment of speed, Booster 9, so it's also at max Q, technically. Because this is probably the maximum aerodynamic pressure that Booster 9 will today experience.
There you go.
So, 2 vehicles on max Q right now.
There you go. It looks like Falcon made it out of max Q and out of focus.
Wow.
I'm sorry, it's I know, a bit mean, but ours was our tracker's a little bit clearer. That should be coming up shortly on MECO, first and second stage separation, and then SES-1, startup of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine. And we will also have to see what kind of nozzle it has.
It'll be normal nozzle, thankfully.
Yes.
A good one, yes.
Thankfully.
Wow, that's the first time we've had a commentary team that's all pro regular nozzle.
Yep.
Sorry, Max,
Regular,
but you're wrong.
good.
I love that you could see the way that shot was. You could see that it's Booster 9 like, I see you, I'm going to be doing that soon. Wait for me, I'll catch up, I promise.
And everybody be like, yeah, sure. There we go, good nozzle.
Yes, and good fairing separation.
Nice. And good Booster 9 rolling by. This is multi-staged commentary.
There
Yeah,
you go.
because
That's
Miko
3
just happened.
pictures.
Yeah.
That's 3 pictures now. You've got Starbase and then first stage, second stage. I love it.
Imagine it would be a Falcon Heavy. We would be starting to really struggle here because we would have just comment at this point about 5 different things.
And that doesn't even include the members multi-stream that has 9 additional views there too.
Yeah.
NASASpaceflight trying to bring you all the views.
Is there a rocket for most rockets being launched at the same time?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Yes.
Hey! Just
There we go. Let's see what else we have here, question-wise, in regards to Starship.
I believe we have some commentary issue. It's back. It's back. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there
we
the bot was
just
being
brief.
weird.
Yeah. Brief hiccup there, but we are back. You're yours again.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but here we are.
Yeah, we are back.
Well, while we have a quick Falcon question here, I will answer this one, just asking, which lands or splashes down first, the fairings or the booster? I believe the booster comes down in 8 minutes or so, and the fairings take about 45 minutes, I believe.
Correct.
So, booster wins.
By far.
Let's see. Here's a question from Bunker the Husky asking, at what point do you think Raptors not starting will be totally intolerated for Starship launches, i.e. 33 Raptors must be lit for clamp release? I'll go to each of you on that. What do you think, Adrian?
I think very, very soon. Probably like as soon as they get into like operational missions. I wonder if there ever will be like for Starlinks or something where they know if they lose one it's still fine, so they still commit. But I wouldn't be surprised if they as soon as they leave the test area they were like, yeah, we want full engine for commit.
What do you think, Trevor?
Yeah, I really hope that on this next flight, the LCC for release is that all 33 engines are up. It really feels like it should be on this flight. That said, like, at what point does it really start to become a problem and not tolerated at all? I think that kind of depends, like Adrian was saying, on who's the customer. For these early missions, like B9 is only the second full booster that SpaceX has built. But then, I think if you have a customer payload on board or worse crew, it's 33 or, those clamps ain't being released.
Yeah, I think the original requirement was they can do no more than 3 engines out and still commit to liftoff, which is exactly what we saw with Booster 7 and Ship 24. The thing is, though, very quickly after those 3 engines went out, we saw even more engines go out well below that limit. So hopefully they got an idea from that of, all right, how many we might lose initially after liftoff first, and then reduce that number from the acceptable at liftoff. So maybe it's only 1 or 2 can be out instead of 3. I think that's going to take a little bit of time for them to figure out. So I think it's going to be a couple flights as we get ready for booster landing, I believe, there.
Yep.
Oh, it's landing already.
Yep. That appears to be the landing burn. And that is going to be landing on, hopefully, Of Course I Still Love You very shortly.
This is the entry burn, by the way, not landing.
Oh, sorry, entry.
Oh.
Oh, I forgot, it's West Coast, so at 8 minutes. 8 minutes is typically when you see the landing burn for East Coast Falcon. I'm just a little bit used to that.
Huh.
I love
Also
these
booster-
new second stage views. So
Yep.
clean, so high res.
Also, Booster 9 is very soon passing our close-up cameras, as we see here.
There we go.
And also you can see that annoyingly bright light truck behind it.
Even if you can't see the truck, you can certainly see the effects of it, but it gives you a good idea of all the people walking alongside it, just the size of the SPMT, the transporter, and the booster itself. I think whenever you get the people for scale, that I always love the most. That's when you get the best perspective on how big Starship really is.
Yep.
All right. Let's see. There we
Hoping
go. It
there's
appears we've got
landing
landing on the right side of your screen. Hopefully once it goes through the clouds, we should see the deck of Course I Still Love You.
Oh, we see it in the other camera.
There it is.
Oh, that looks
Landing
good.
light deploy.
And that looks good. That marks SpaceX's 215th booster landing, 141st consecutive booster landing, and 76th landing on Of Course I Still Love You.
That is also SpaceX's 55th launch this year.
That's really impressive.
Now that that's done, I do want to go through the support queue, and then we'll go on from there. John, getting some items from the store, saying, I remember a time before video games, loved the design, great job, guys. I mean, yeah, the design is definitely awesome. So thank you for getting the notebook. And Lawrence, oh, I appreciate you, Lawrence. Chris B has already said pun tokens in store messages count double, so that's 2 pun tokens, and I'll ignore the part that says West Coast is best coast. I'll let that slide because of the pun tokens. So, thank you. If you guys don't mind, Trevor, do you want to take over on questions for just a moment while I quickly refill my drink and
Yeah, for
try
sure.
and get my cat to move while I do it?
Of course. Here, so Adrian, we have a question from Adam. He's asking, so if they say that 4 engines shut off prematurely during the B9 static fire, doesn't that mean that they lit all 33 engines briefly for the first time ever?
I'm not sure. The wording can be a bit iffy. So I think if they... Okay, my thinking is here. If they would have done that, I think they would have said that.
I agree.
So that's my thinking on that. And also I think it's... we will now see the convoy passing. And...
yeah.
So...
Yeah, in my
that's really cool.
opinion, so, right, Elon talked about them wanting to change the Raptor ignition sequence for this flight, and I believe John Innsbrucker at the start said that they ignite in banks of engines now. So what I kind of wonder if this happened is if, you know, when they started igniting the final bank, you know, they had some common problem, and the first 4 engines in that bank threw an abort, which then triggered the LCC to abort the entire firing. Because then they would have had 4 premature shutdowns that led to the entire vehicle abort. But I'm not sure, but I agree with Adrian that I feel like they would have said they ignited all 33 if they had. Here we have
And there we go.
awesome view of the booster driving by.
Oh, you can see the engines at night. And SpaceX turned on that light. And there you can see the wheels of the SPMT, which is carrying this giant booster. Like, this really gives you a perspective how big this thing is. I love these shots. Look at that.
Yeah, and then you see the person walking behind. It just looks tiny.
Wow. Like, even these raptors are giants. Like, Raptor's not a super small engine. It's kinda chunky.
Yeah. Man, I love these shots.
Is that, like,
That's-
what was that? The other shot, was that Jack?
I believe this
Is
is...
that- No, that, wait. I think that's at the highway area, like, that's where the cameras are, right? But the other shot was coming from an area where I don't think there's a camera.
Yeah, this is Jack's cam on right now.
No,
I
this
believe.
is... Yeah, this
Or-
is Jack's cam.
Yeah.
This right now. Because there should not be a camera here. So... I'm looking forward once that gets getting closer.
Yeah. Jack is promising some zoomies in the back channel, so... Let's see.
So... Yeah, it's like, once you get to be there once, you understand like where these cameras should be. So it's like, wait, that's not our camera spot. By the way, there you can see how SpaceX is at the like at midnight. It's totally chill there. Nothing going on. Wow, that's a cool one. I like this one.
Yeah.
Sorry
Ooh,
about
you
that.
can-
I am back here.
Welcome
Actually, I'm
back.
Sawyer. Thank you. I do just want to point out that where Jack is completely cleared for where we're allowed to be. It's a misspeak. It's what, 5 o'clock in the morning where you are, Adrian?
Yes, 6 actually.
6. Oh, jeez. Yeah. And you've been awake for a while, so still appreciate it.
I actually have not been awake for a while because I did a nap before this stream.
Yeah, but for the time that we were waiting for it to finally move
That's
and
true.
all of that. All right. As I just
Is it me or
there
is
we go.
it
Now
Sawyer?
I can hear you again. No, that was me.
Yes. Okay.
Like I just said, I dropped all my controls, including the actual connection to the computer for my headset. Let's see. Here's an interesting question. I don't know if this is answered yet or not. I apologize if it was, but Eccentricity asking, given the suboptimal result, I don't know suboptimal per se, but given that it wasn't the full duration and all 33 the whole time, do you think they would do another static fire attempt?
Yes.
Adrian, I'll start with you, and then Trevor, and then I'll give my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with Adrian, definitely.
Yeah. They have to do this again.
Why do you think that? Thanks for the short answers.
I mean, they didn't properly, like, it didn't look like a complete test. They didn't recommend full duration. They aborted multiple engines. Yeah, it doesn't seem to me like that is sufficient to certify this booster for flight. Like, this is... I think it needs a bit more data validation. Maybe it's just me.
And it's a perfect view as we see these up-close view of the Raptor engines. Which ones were the actual ones that shut down? We don't know specifically, but it's at least 4 of the 33 that are inside there. That we can say.
Pick your least favorite number and be like, yeah, that's the one.
There you go. Yeah, it was that one. And yeah, fantastic zoom work in on that. I believe that is Jack. Let's see. I do want to thank a little bit more support that came in while I was away. Starspace, thank you for upgrading to Red Team. Hopefully you enjoy the multi-stream that we have going on in beautiful 4K. Anonymous item from the store here saying, current mechanical engineering student just 2 hours north of Starbase. Last comment was biased about the third coast, LOL. That's totally okay, as you get one of the Texas Tank Watcher shirts. Also asking, how does Starship suppress pogo vibrations at the inlet of the pumps? Do we know the specifics of how that works, Adrian?
No. I actually have no idea. Trevor?
Okay, so know a tiny bit about this. If I remember correctly, pogo oscillation is when, as an engine is igniting, you have some combustion instability, which causes these waves of pressure. And that's obviously not ideal, because that creates like variation in the engine thrust, which can then cause vibrations throughout the whole structure, and that's not ideal. So I believe generally the way that these are gotten around is you pretty much just learn when do these oscillations start happening, and thankfully physics is constant. So you can start to, if you think that you're entering a low pressure zone because you have data from previous tests, you can start spinning your pumps a little bit faster to make up for that low pressure. And then as you have a peak of pressure coming, you can lower the pump speed a little bit to counter it out a little bit. But yeah, that's the whole thing of dealing with those vibrations, and I don't know what the correct term is, not in my mind right now, but the turbulence, if you will, is very hard and just adds to the engineering problems.
There you go. And Moldy Space Industries with the $20 super chat saying, thanks as always to Jack for the amazing shots, and just want to say, hashtag West Coast Best Coast, because I saw the Starlink from my hotel in the Bay Area. Uploaded to the members Discord because we love the member program here. I think you just made Crispy smile from ear to ear there, as more photos for member programs are always great, and we love our members here, so thank you for submitting that. After stream, I definitely going to take a look at that. And yeah, if you're not already a member of the Discord, Capcom members and above get access.
Yeah, I'm looking at Moldy's video now. It's awesome. I'm glad you got to see that, and thank you for your support. And everyone, go check it out. Go look at the horrible stuff they make in Kerbal and hate on it with us.
There you go. Let's see. Here's an interesting question for you, Adrian. Philip Howell asking, do you care to explain chop stops? TM?
I wanna point out that I was not the person to coin that name. It just came up somewhere on air, and so I have the pleasure to write scripts for Jack from time to time, and I think it was Stas actually who coined that name, I think. And basically, since I have the pleasure to write Jack's script from time to time, I can put words into his mouth, and that's funny. So I decided to make him say chop stops on the recent Starbase update. It's a kind of so script writers have the kind of power to do that sometimes, and we sometimes like to do that. So that's where that came from. So yeah, sometimes you can enjoy Jack's reaction of seeing what I have put in the script.
There you go. I believe we had a slight glitch here. Clayle, thank you very much for your Red Team membership. Also came along with a question asking, how come SpaceX hasn't built private roads on Starbase? It seems like they need to close public roads a lot. That may be a question for you, Adrian, since you've been there.
Well, the space is limited. It's not like there's an endless area next to Highway 4 to the either side. Like on the left side you have the production site, and then you have the village, and also you have a wildlife area to the left and right of Highway 4, and to the right side of Highway 4 there's a giant puddle that always forms. So it's it would need some serious work going through a wildlife area. It wouldn't be optimal. It's really that the area is pretty limited where you can build, where there is even probably a good foundation to even build something, and it's not that easy to build there. And again, there is a wildlife area, and you don't want to disturb a wildlife area to build a second road next to a road.
Yeah, and also there's a whole lot of paperwork that goes along with building in a wildlife area. You've got the wildlife, fish and wildlife, type organizations with federal oversight and state oversight that have to approve clearance of that as well for environmental things. Technically, it's the same with a lot of the stuff over at the Kennedy Space Center, at least now, after some of the things they accidentally kind of dumped in the early days of keeping the soil clean and keeping the area that is the natural wildlife area as natural and wild as possible. Let's see here. That Kevin. Oh, is that which Kevin? That Kevin asking.
That Kevin.
How long until we start seeing engine serial numbers with 4 digits? Trevor, what do you think? I mean, we've seen, 170s, 180s, and we know they've built the 200th?
Yeah, so I would assume that they're well into the 200s between development engines and production engines that they're testing at McGregor that we haven't seen. However, right now their launch cadence just isn't high enough for them to build many more. But we know that Elon has mentioned that they've had the capability to build already, I believe, almost 2 engines a day, and that's just from their plant at Hawthorne, not even including what they have, or the production facility that they have in McGregor to build engines. So if SpaceX really wanted to, I think they could get into the 4-digit engine serial numbers, honestly, probably by the end of next year. However, more realistically, I suspect it'll probably restart again when we get Raptor SN3. Sorry, not Raptor SN3, Raptor 3.
V3, yeah.
Yeah. So I would give it on the order of 3 or 4 years before we start seeing that, but...
Yeah, if you count V3s as totally separate, then it'll take a little longer.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, they're able to build an engine ridiculously quickly.
Yeah, and you see how many they test a day over at McGregor Live 24/7. It really is. They'll do 4 or 5 tests a day, and it's easy enough for them to swap between, we're going to test Raptor V3, we're going to test Merlin Vacuum, Raptor Vacuum, all these different ones. It's impressive. Here's the super chat from Ben Newbury that has a question that I've seen a couple people asking here. Is Kino Akando in chat saying, if there was a abort or hold after the point where the deluge system is already going, will they be able to continue, or is it an automatic scrub due to not having enough water for the system? What are your thoughts on that, Adrian?
Let me digest that question. Well, based on what we have seen so far, I think it would be probably maybe a scrub. To be fair, if you abort that late into account, it usually is not that great of a news. Like, we have seen that there was a hold point for Starship at, I think 40 seconds. So that would be before deluge kicks in. And I think once they're getting into the 10-15 seconds area, it's either you go or you have a pretty significant recycle time. I think yes, that's the case.
As we see Booster 9 here going by the tents over there at the production site, and we see the bays coming into view, where do you think they're going to put Booster 9 for the time being now?
I think I kind of think Mega Bay area, that's would be my expectation. What about you, Trevor?
I would have to agree.
I mean, that's the only one that's open right now, correct?
I believe so.
Or that at least has room for Booster 9 in there. This would be very interesting as well for to see what they end up doing in there. Is it just work on the Raptors? Is there any other work that needs to go on inside? And also, probably the biggest question of all of this, is this where they add on the hot staging ring? I don't know what your
I
thoughts
think
are
so.
on if they add it here or not.
Yeah, I think so.
so. Also, remember when we thought the mid bay was big?
Remember when we thought
Good
the windbreak
times.
was big?
Yeah, good times. When the mid bay was built and everybody was like, wow, what a giant structure there in Boca Chica. And now it's like high bay, mega bay, mega bay.
We called it the high bay at first. That's how big it was.
Yeah. And then we reframed that name because the high bay came. Like, it's insane how big these buildings are. High bay and mega bay are just insanely big.
I will bring up, by the way, that it'll be extra interesting to see what they do with this booster in the Mega Bay, because I believe each crane in the Mega Bay can only lift, it's either 150 or 180 tons or something like that. And the booster is closer, is in the 200 tons. So they actually need 2 cranes to lift the booster from 2 different points if they want to move it up to a different stand for work. So if we see them do that, then it's likely that they're going to be doing some engine work or some other work where they need to, depress the booster. But if they don't do that, then it could be that they're taking it back purely for hot stage ring install, and then maybe roll back to the pad to do any engine work, since engine work is easier to do on the pad. Yeah, Alex is also noting that they can work on the booster on the transport stand, so they have lots of options. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yep.
Exactly. I know some people originally thought maybe they would add it on to the bottom of ship 25. Maybe they would do it at the pad, pins, welds. There's been a whole bunch of questions about it, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And I'm hearing that Booster 9 is about to have a friend, or a friend is about to have Booster 9 too in there, right?
Yeah, we can see barely in the angle here the parts of Booster 12 in the Mega Bay. You can see it behind that crane there, in the corner that is often a bit hidden from us. But that's Booster 12. That's the methane tank section.
There you go. I feel like it's, it's the wrong part of the joke. What's 9 plus 12? Actually 21, but, it's a bad math joke. Don't worry.
I didn't get it.
Don't worry. It's an older meme. You wouldn't know that.
now
if you're in modular arithmetic, I could agree that that's not necessarily true.
We are approaching, by the way, the point where we will now get the knowledge about where Booster 9 is going, because it either turns right very soon and goes into the production yard, or it goes further and goes to the rocket garden where they also started to work. But I think is it turning? Not sure.
It's slowing down for sure. And yes, chat gets it. Some people, it was the old joke, what's 9 plus 10? 21. And it's a whole meme with it. So let's go back to Booster 9 here.
Is it passing?
I can't quite tell.
It seems, it was pointed out in the back channel, it's possible that the light truck is actually doing the turn first. So maybe that means it's turning as well?
Yeah, it's always, perspective can kind of mess with you here, because sometimes it looks like it's further ahead the road than it actually is.
One of our Starbase operators, Thomas, is saying that the entrance is fairly far left, so it might graze off the edge of the screen. So
Yeah.
Yes, and you can see some of the other views in the member multi-view too of it passing around. Kind of get a slight different perspective. But yeah, it's we're gonna keep an eye on where that goes, that's for sure.
I think it came to a halt. So this would be still the entrance to the production yard here. So if it turns here, there it is.
There we go, I think.
Yeah, it's backing up. Yeah, it will probably back up and then go in.
It's got to do a K-turn. It's taking its driver's test.
Yeah, it's still it doesn't have its license yet. And there we go.
In more
It's
ways
now,
than one.
It's now going back in, and we will now see it turn into the production area. Is it okay to call it the production yard? Because it's like a giant yard in front of production buildings.
I mean, it's I guess the yard portion of the production site.
Yeah.
I
So
don't know.
production yard.
Sure, as long as you're okay
3
with
points hurt.
saying Loxygen, then yes.
Thomas Hayden in the back channel saying 3 points turn for whatever reason. The SPMT operator is just flexing at this point. He's like, watch this, and then he does a 3-point turn with a 70-meter tall booster. I mean, I would do it.
Yeah.
It's crazy that Booster 9 has passed 3 other boosters, and on that last framing shot we had 4 boosters, 4 super heavies in one shot.
There it is.
To be fair, some of those are old and not going to fly, but still absolutely wild.
Regardless,
Yep.
it's a family photo.
Yep. Hey, look, Booster 4 is still waving with the Gridman.
And as we
That's
mentioned,
Booster 4, right?
I believe.
Yeah, I think Booster 4 is waving.
and like you mentioned, parts of Booster 12 are also inside there. So that's 5 or 4 and 1 in the process of being built.
And I believe Booster 13 started stacking as well.
At least
But-
like the segments, maybe. 12 is still in
Yeah.
parts. 11 is stacked. 10 stacked. 9 stacked.
Yeah, because that's 9, 10, 11, and 4 in that shot. And then I believe 12 is under assembly in the Mega Bay. And then I believe they just started stacking or are preparing to stack 13.
Yeah, they have quite a bit of boosters.
And Patrick, who's running the stream in the back channel, saying, I can tell you for sure it's not Booster 7. Oof.
That's true. That there's Booster 7 is at the bottom of the ocean.
Okay, Alex, as always, is thankfully paying more attention to Starbase, clarifying 13 has not started stacking yet, so sorry about that. I couldn't remember if they were just stashing parts for it or started assembling.
Yeah, it's just the parts of B12 for sure that are in there.
Yeah. Too many numbers to remember.
Yeah, it's a lot. I can tell you it's always fun when you write the Starbase update scripts, because sometimes you'll just see like the booster somewhere standing and you're like, huh, which one is this?
Yeah, that's also a huge help from the fantastic volunteers that help out with moving the cameras around over at Starbase Live. Not only do they give us the great views, a lot of times they keep track of, which booster's which, where it's going. It's really helpful and really fun. So, huge shout out to the team that helps out with Starbase Live.
Yeah, they are awesome.
As this continues forward, stealing the spotlight from the other boosters it passed, couple of super chats I do want to hit here. Liam DeCool, thank you for becoming a Pad Rat member. And Hunter with a question asking how many from the NSF team have visited Starbase? Well, we can start with the 4 of us that are here at least.
Well,
Adrian,
I was.
Yeah, Adrian, I know
Yes.
you're a yes. I have not yet.
I am a no.
We'll have to
Patrick
see
is,
about...
I think, also a no, right?
I believe the only person in this call that's been there is Adrian, because Alex hasn't, and Patrick hasn't. I
The
don't
one
think
with
Kevin
with
has.
the longest trip.
Kevin has not. I know for sure obviously Jack is down there. Sean's down there. Mary, I would hope, has been there considering that's about where she lives. Poor Crispy has not yet. We will get you over here to the United States, sir. We will make that happen.
Yeah, Gage has been there.
Yes.
He's tracking right now. So yeah, that's another one. Everyone say thank you, Gage.
Yes,
He's one of
huge
our
shout out.
awesome Starbase operators.
Gage really smooth there with the tracking also. Always does great stuff. Gage, great job. So I think that's kind of where we're at team-wise who's been there. I'm sure I'm probably missing some people that actually have, but for now... Oh, and Das.
Yeah,
There's
that
a ton
has
of us
been there
who've
a
been
few times.
Yeah.
Max was also there.
And
Yes.
I almost said and Adrian and Andrew has been there.
Yeah.
There are tons of our team members that have been there.
And we can't forget our robot army. I don't know if they count as people, but they certainly serve a great purpose. And in the age of AI, just in case, I want to make sure they know that we love them. All right. Well, on that note, it appears as if Booster 9 has come to a halt. And as she stands tall in the spotlight, I think we will wrap up our dedicated coverage for now, but a reminder that coverage continues all the time at Starbase Live 24/7. You can visit that on the channel, nsf.live, also has all of our different live streams on there. But I do want to thank everyone who joined us for the stream tonight. Thank you for joining us, Adrian.
Thanks, I will go to sleep now.
What sleep?
Good question.
Thank you as well for joining us, Trevor.
Thank you very much, Sawyer, for hosting, everyone for being here, and SpaceX for providing us with this awesome thing to watch.
Exactly. And thank you as well to Patrick for pushing the buttons, pulling the levers, and 20,000 name pronouncers. We do love you, Patrick. Thank you so much for operating the stream tonight. I have been Sawyer Rosenstein, and we can all head on over now. Oh, sorry, yes, go ahead.
We also had Jack in the field.
Yes. Sorry, Jack. I don't know what you said about which coast is best, but we'll thank you for all the great zooms and fantastic shots out there. Also, huge shout out to Kevin and Gage, who have been working in the back with some of these fantastic views. So a huge shout out to both of them as well. I'm Sawyer Rosenstein, and I don't know about you, but I think we can keep watching this over at Starbase Live. So we'll head on over there, and we will see you all next time for the next dedicated stream.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside speed off. Bring in speed off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
What is it?
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You dead? Sure. We don't need any more of these.